Yes, yes. Brilliant. So this obviously, as Shreya said, this is the one book I think each one of us has loved it.
प्रदीप शौर्य से हाय बोल देना, बेचारा पीछे से हाय करके चला गया,
Yes,
nobody noticed.
नहीं नहीं, शौर्य
we did. Me
शौर्य
and
पता नहीं
Sonali
कितने
spoke
बार
to
आ
him
रहा है.
earlier. He's our youngest member of the Readers Club, but today he's got some assignment to finish. That's why he's like, to get rid of that assignment is popping in again and again. Go ahead. All right. So let's get in. I think, Sonali,
Yeah.
over to you. We look forward for a brilliant session. And the stage is all yours. Let's get going.
Okay. So thank you, first of all, for joining. And I'm looking forward for this session along with you guys. And let's start. So basically, Who Moved My Cheese is written by Dr. Spencer Johnson, one of the bestsellers, and a really, really very nice book for all youngsters to go through. Not only youngsters, but I feel for everyone who resist or inhibit change. The book basically has a couple of characters, Sniff and Scurry, who are simple mice, and complex are Hem and Haw. Maze is basically a place where they find their cheese. Cheese over here is metaphor for anything that you desire in your life. And something that you get in your life which makes you happy, something which you don't will make you traumatic or sad. That's basically the metaphor for cheese in this story. We start off with Cheese Station C, where generally Sniff and Scurry, Hem and Haw, they lived together in different houses in one place. They were the ones who always, every morning, had their routine, used to gear up with their sports shoes and then start their journey towards Cheese Station C, where they used to find their cheese and they used to sit nicely and nibble on it. Cheese Station C was a station where they had a lot of cheese, which they had never seen before. Every day, the routine continued. Every morning, the mice and the little people would gear up with their running shoes, head towards Cheese Station C to get their type of cheese. As mentioned before, the cheese store was very large. Hem and Haw, just to make sure that their life was comfortable, they also moved their house towards closer to the Maze C. They decorated it. They also had the saying, they drew a picture of cheese and had a saying, having cheese makes you happy. As time passed, Hem and Haw's confidence grew into arrogance. Success was getting into their head. They started coming into the maze late, knowing the cheese was still there. They did not notice that the supply of cheese was somehow getting smaller day by day, while on the other hand, Sniff and Scurry were observant enough. Every morning, they used to continue their morning routine. They used to suspect if something had changed. If not, they used to sit and start nibbling onto the cheese. One fine day, Sniff and Scurry continued their morning routine. They reached Cheese Station C. Somehow they found the cheese was missing. They glanced at each other, geared up, and quickly went through the maze in search of new cheese. Hem and Haw had become very lazy. They used to pop in later during the day, knowing that the cheese was still there. Later, the same particular day, they reached the cheese station. Seeing it was empty, Hem started yelling, "Where is my cheese?" It is not fair. He was shocked. Haw was also shocked and shook his head in disbelief. He was expecting cheese to be there. The two little complex brains, were not paying attention to the simple things that were changing around them. The behavior that they portrayed was not particularly nice or productive, but was understandable. They went home hungry and discouraged. While leaving the cheese station, Haw drew the cheese on the wall. which said, the more important the cheese is to you, the more important you want to hold on to it. Sniff and Scurry, on the other hand, had moved on. Hem and Haw continued to be Hem and Haw. The next day, Hem and Haw returned to cheese station C. Unfortunately, there was no cheese. Hem and Haw both were disappointed, but still were standing there in search of cheese. Haw realized and said, "Where are Sniff and Scurry? Do they know something that we don't?" Hem, on the other hand, was pretty arrogant and said, "What would they know? They are just little mice. Being human, we are smarter than them. We should figure it out." And he would like to have his own cheese. Both were disappointed. Haw had a different approach. He was still thinking, maybe we should stop analyzing the situation and go and find new cheese. Hem, on the other hand, was not even okay to see the change that has happened. He wanted to have his own cheese and he wanted to stay there. The two little mice were pretty much having a pragmatic approach, and they just went along with the change that happened. They went in search of new cheese into the maze. While, on the other hand, Hem and Haw was still mulling over it. Haw was still tired of the situation. At one given point, he laughed at himself and thought about what his fear was doing to him. That's when Haw decided to leave the cheese station. Hem was still not willing to accept the situation. While leaving cheese station C, Haw announced, "It is maze time." He, while leaving, wrote on the wall, "If you don't change, you can become extinct." Sniff and Scurry was super excited with their geared up structure, and they went into their pragmatic approach of finding cheese. At cheese station N, they found cheese, the supply of cheese which they had never seen before, the biggest store of cheese the mice had ever seen, even when they were not around. Haw was still at cheese station C and was anxious and wondered if he still wanted to run into the maze to find new cheese. He then wrote on the wall, "What would I do if I weren't afraid?" Generally, when we are afraid, we don't take the next step. We decide to stay in our comfort zone. Haw also felt the same, but then he moved on saying, "Better late than never." At first, he struggled. He had become weak. He realized change would not have been the same if he would have been more observant and would have anticipated it. Maybe that's exactly what Sniff and Scurry have been doing, is what was his thought. He decided to be more alert and observant going forward and adapt to it. He then took a deep breath and wrote onto the maze wall, "Smell the cheese often, so you know when it is getting old." After wandering in the maze for quite some time, Haw reached cheese station A. He was thinking, if I could get cheese over here. To his surprise, it wasn't. There were some small morsels of cheese here and there. He had them. He took them, and then he thought maybe he should go back to cheese station C and see if Hem would be there. Then he wouldn't be alone. Then he asked himself the same question: what would I do if I weren't afraid? Haw basically went back to cheese station C to see if his friend was willing to join him. Hem was really not willing to join him. He, on the other hand, was standing there digging the walls of cheese station C to see if the cheese was hidden somewhere within the walls. It wasn't there because the cheese had already moved. Haw went to convince Hem. Hem said he is not willing to come back with Haw. for the cheese, and he would still wait at cheese station C to have his own cheese. Haw was still standing there thinking what to do. He then remembered the time when he was best in the maze. It was when he was moving along. He then just left. While leaving, he wrote onto the wall, "Movement in a new direction helps you find new cheese." Haw was walking down the dark passageway, and was scared to death. He laughed at himself and realized his fears were making things worse. He moved in a new direction. He was letting go and trusting what lay ahead of him, even when he was not sure of what it was. He started enjoying himself while walking towards the cheese in the maze. Then he wrote onto the wall, "When you stop being afraid, you feel good." He was just thinking, why didn't I see this before? He started to imagining himself being beside a cheese station full of cheese, enjoying his new cheese. That's when he wrote onto the wall, imagining yourself enjoying your new cheese will lead you to it. He was just walking into the maze, and he was just visualizing the way he would have been when he would have had the cheese. That's when he wrote onto the wall, "The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you find new cheese." After a while, Haw returned to cheese station C. Again offered him the same offer. Haw was disappointed but did not stop. Hem declined his offer. Haw realized it was safer for him to go back into the maze to find cheese than to remain in a cheeseless situation. The fear that he had was worse than the situation that he was in, but he was okay. His old thinking was being now clouded with fear and worry, but he did realize it was natural for the change to occur, whether you expect it or not. He realized that he had changed his belief. That's when he paused and wrote onto the wall, "The old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese." It all depends on how and what you believe. When you see that you can find and enjoy new cheese, you change the course. I just hoped he was heading into the right direction and him would be able to read his handwriting on the wall and find his way. He wrote on his thinking onto the wall. Noticing small changes early helps you to adapt to the bigger changes that are to come. Sniff and Scurry, on the other hand, as said before, had already found cheese at Cheese Station Inn. Haw was on his way. He had let go of his past and was adapting to the present. He continued into the maze with greater speed and strength. Haw proceeded through the corridor that was new to him. At last, he reached one of the corridors, rounded a corner, and found a Cheese Station Inn. When he entered, he saw cheese. For a moment, he thought it was his imagination. Then he saw his friends Sniff and Scurry. Sniff nodded and Scurry waved his paw. Their fat bellies showed they had been here for quite some time. Haw was super happy, and he was happy that he had changed. That's when he went back and he was just thinking about the handwriting, which was still there onto the wall, hoping that Hem would once start from Cheese Station C, go through the handwriting and follow his steps and reach Cheese Station N for new cheese. The handwriting on the wall said, "Change happens," which means they kept moving the cheese. We should anticipate the change, get ready for the cheese to move. Monitor the change, smell the cheese often so you know when it was getting old. Adapt to the change quickly. Change with the time. Savor the adventure and enjoy the present. Be ready to change and enjoy it again and again. So basically, it was a vicious circle, which meant move with the cheese and enjoy it. Some of the key takeaways and a food for thought is, which character are we like? Are we Sniff, Scurry, or are we Hem and Haw? Hem basically who is always in a denial mode and is resisting to change. Haw, the one who learns to adapt, knowing change can lead to something better. Sniff is the one who will sniff the change early. Scurry is more quickly into action. Basically, we all know that change is inevitable. The only thing is the time it takes for us to accept the change. Mice over here were simple thinkers. They had strong instincts. They were observant enough. They were prepared to change. They were not reanalyzing or rethinking on anything. They just changed with the environment. Hem and Haw were complex thinkers. They gave reasons. They were ignorant. They were not observant to the changes that were happening into the surrounding. Were not prepared at all. Did not change with the environment. The key takeaways from this book are: change is inevitable. Reflect on your reactions. Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% on how you react. Accept the situation, say no to fear, and move on when the cheese moves. Thank you. That's it from my side. If you have any questions, or let me know how it went, and I would make sure that I could change something.
That was brilliant. Yeah, that was brilliant.
Amazing, Sonali, superb, yeah.
Yeah, it was really brilliant.
Great milestone achieved. And as I said, I see again, Mihir is late, but he is definitely there. So I see him on the clubhouse right now. So he's there, and I'm sure I'll take the feedback from him separately as well. But I think it's been a great learning. At the start, as I said, this is one book that each one of us loves. So thank you for sharing this, Sonali. We can quickly take a vote from everybody whether you should, get the certificate for the month. So Shreya and yes, we were discussing that, Sonali was one of the, she is the first one, of course, for this month. At the same time, she's competing with a guy who's been like 10 years in the industry talking about this kind of books. So should she get the kind of points that, where she is the star speaker of the month? I'll leave it to you all. You can vote in the group as well, WhatsApp group as well. But we'll be happy to share the feedback here. I am also wanting to announce that for September, I am planning a cash prize along with the certificate. Would that be a good idea? So Sonali can nominate herself again.
No, sir.
Okay. How does it feel, Sonali? How was your experience today?
The book is really nice, to be honest. And I basically would see my character to be Haw, because I was in a denial mode like him when I was told that, okay, I'm not the one you're going to work with. And the cheese was already moved. So yeah, it took me some time, a day or two, to think about everything. But I did adapt. And now I'm in a better position, to be honest. I'm good with the new person. I'm working well. I mean, there's a lot of work, but that's okay. That's part and parcel of the job that we do. So yeah, I know which character I am in. And to be honest, I was super scared when I thought that I would do this book over here. And after I finished the book, I'm like, okay, who cares? I mean, what will happen? I will not do it well. That's something, and it's okay if I don't do well. At least the fear that I had was not there after I finished this book. So
amazing. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. Sure is giving his thumbs up for your comments as well as for taking this challenge up.
Yeah, I would have done better maybe.
No, I think you've done great. I think, and again, I think the slide that you are right now stuck at, I think it's a food for thought for each one of us. Now we need to figure out where we are. I'm sure, like me, Shreya, and yes, and Amir also is thinking. I think Avni was also here. So I think we all are thinking in terms of what kind of character are we, and obviously each character here talks about what we need to do. So yes, we are complex thinkers. We have reasons. So we have excuses, whatever we call it, but something like, from the book's key takeaway, as you mentioned, we don't work on an instinct. We're focused on looking at a lot of other things. Brilliantly done, Sonali. We are very happy. Thank you so much for sharing. I am working out, as I said, on a plan for September. I want each one of us from the Readers Club to participate in that. Of course, there will be a prize along with the certificate that we roll out for September. And there are a few other surprises as well that we plan in the month of September. So we look forward for that. And Shreya, Yash, Mihir, Avni, and each one of, who's a part of this Readers Club right now would also, I would encourage you all to please pick up a book. I think we have a speaker for next week already nominated. So I'll check with her again. If the next week is open, you all can nominate yourself, take up the next book. And September, I think we can all do better. And I'm sure summaries like this will definitely help us improvise as well. So we look forward for that.
Yeah.
And I guess Shaurya has something to say. Shaurya?
Hi, Shaurya.
The story made me hungry.
Please go and eat some cheese.
He is our sniff. So he sniffs out change early. He saw the cheese and he said, I know this story. And he went to grab a cheese inside. He couldn't find a cheese inside.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you for reading. So on this note, thank you everybody for attending. We really loved you having here. And we look forward for many such sessions like this. Let's connect week on week basis. Let's make this a habit which never changes. So as much as possible with God's grace, isko le jate hain aage. Let's see how we can make this book summary a regular habit, a regular learning session, which will empower each one of us. So keep reading, keep enjoying, and let's watch out for September competitions. If you have any suggestions, please drop me a message separately. I would be happy to discuss, and we can look at what we can do for September.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Take care.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, Sonali.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.